The New York Rangers have several promising prospects who have yet to debut in the NHL. Today, we tell you which three could make an impact in the NHL this season.
You're Locked on the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 1362 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. Just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. And we are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So, wanted to talk about a topic that's always something of a hot button issue when it comes to Ranger fans, and that is the handling of the team's prospects. And said handling of said prospects has certainly been suspect in recent seasons. I don't think anybody can argue that. We've seen some homegrown success, but we've seen a lot of Ranger prospects, some first rounders and whatnot, that very simply just have not worked out for this team. But we're not going to be negative today. We're going to be positive. We're going to take a look at the kind of the next wave, the next batch of young New York Ranger players who could, as soon as this season, make their NHL debut and or stick with the team and or make a significant impact for the Rangers this season. There's three guys that we're going to look at specifically. The only prerequisites for being eligible to be on this list is you must be a player on the New York Rangers. Obviously, you must have also been drafted by the Rangers, and you must not have, as of yet, made your NHL debut, not appeared in an NHL game. So there's three guys that I'm talking about, but we'll throw in a fourth as a bonus, consider it something of an honorable mention, and that's going to be Dylan Garand. Garand has been called up a couple of times. If memory serves me right, he has been active at least twice for NHL games, and it might be as many as 3 times. But he's been there on the bench, full pads and everything, has not yet appeared in an NHL game, however, so he is eligible for this list, and we're throwing him in there, as an honorable mention. He doesn't quite make the top 3 because the only way that he would appear on the Rangers this upcoming season, you would have to think, is if the team is in a situation where either Igor Shesterkin or Jonathan Quick gets injured. And obviously, we do not want that to happen. But if that was to happen, as far as which goalie would get called up next to the New York Rangers, it would pretty much have to be Dylan Garand. Louis Domingue is gone. He actually signed a 1-year deal in the KHL, I believe it was, for this upcoming season. So he's no longer in the Ranger organization. And beyond that, there's really no other competition. I mean, you could maybe throw Talon Boyko in there, but him and Dylan Garand actually still both need new contracts. I think, obviously, that will eventually get done. But yeah, I mean, Garand has been promising. He started last season as kind of the guy. I mean, he split time with Domingue, but he's been money in the playoffs, and the Wolf Pack have made it over the past couple of years. Didn't make it this past year, unfortunately. But you look at what Garand did last season, it was his best his best season in the AHL with the Hartford Wolf Pack. 39 games, a record of 20, 10, and 9, a 273 goals against average, a 913 save percentage. So Garand makes this list as an honorable mention. But let's go ahead and get into the proper top 3 right now. Number 3 is going to be Adam Sykora. Sykora will be 21 years old in September. He's a left winger and center, former second-round pick by the Rangers at number 63 overall. It's interesting because Sykora, the year that he was chosen, despite not going until the third to last pick of the second round, he was the Rangers' first draft selection that year. They did not have a first-round pick. He is somewhat undersized at 5'11" and 192 pounds. With Sykora, I could see him eventually getting the cup of coffee treatment that we've seen the Rangers give some of their other prospects in recent seasons. You think back to 3 seasons ago, Will Cooley got the call up with the Rangers, but he was only there for a grand total of 4 games, and then he was sent back down to the Wolf Pack. I get the feeling that was the plan all along with Cooley that season. Ditto for Brian Othmann 2 seasons ago. 2 years ago, Othmann got called up. He was only on the Rangers for 3 games and then got sent back down. But since then, obviously, Cooley, I mean, he's going to be a top 6er to start the season. And Othmann, we'll see where he starts this upcoming season. But obviously, the Rangers still have big plans for him as well, given the fact that he is a former first-round pick. But I could see something very similar for Adam Sykora, a situation in the year where maybe the injuries have piled up a little bit. Maybe you see a certain patch of the schedule where it's an ideal time for Sikora to make his debut, maybe against like a lesser opponent or a weaker opponent, whatever the case might be. But I get the feeling we could see that at some point. The interesting thing to me about Sikora is the considerable lack of buzz surrounding him. I mean, we're talking about a guy who is a young prospect, drafted in the second round by the Rangers. You don't really hear much about him. You don't hear beat writers talk about him too much. I don't talk about him too much on this podcast. His name doesn't come up nearly as often as some other Ranger prospects. The fans, I mean, there's not really a whole lot of buzz. There's not really a whole lot of discussion among the fans on social media or anything along those lines. And, for Ranger fans who are always so plugged into this team and always so interested in how the prospects are doing and, okay, what can we get out of this guy? What kind of role do we have for that guy? Even the fans don't really seem to talk about him all that much. He's just kind of there. Now, part of the reason for that is he spent 3 seasons with the Wolf Pack, or parts of 3 seasons, 139 regular season games, only 17 goals and 36 assists for a total of just 53 points. So that's, pretty underwhelming for somebody that was drafted in the second round. But from what I know about Sikora, high energy player, he battles, competes very hard. One of those guys that's going to play every shift like it's his last. And as I describe that kind of a player, and when you think back to what we saw from the Rangers this past season, it sounds like the Rangers could use more players of Adam Sikora's ilk. Now, if you can't produce, then you can be as competitive as you want. You're not going to, make it big in the NHL. But I'm just kind of surprised how little we hear about him. Even with that being the case, though, I could see him getting called up to the Rangers for a short stint this upcoming season. We'll see how it goes. Number 2 on our list is going to be Noah Laba. Just turned 22 years old, like 3 days ago. He's a center. And I will say this about Laba, and this is also going to apply for the player that we put at number 1 on this list. His chances of debuting with the Rangers this season, seeing any kind of considerable run, making an impact at the NHL level, a lot of it hinges on what the Rangers do with Mika Zibanejad. And I'm not talking about trading him because I think that ship has sailed. Mika's made it pretty clear that he has no interest in waiving his full no-move clause, and that is obviously his right. But it depends on where Mika Zibanejad lines up. Because if he is on right wing with JT Miller centering, whatever line that might be, that does sort of open the door a little bit for an extra center to join the Rangers. Because when you look at third line center under those circumstances, it's either Brodzinski or Parssinen. And nothing against either one of those players, but I think the Rangers at a certain point might look for one of their own homegrown guys to take the reins in that spot. I mean, I'm a big Brodzinski fan, and Parssinen was fine when he was here as well. But it does kind of open the door for a young center prospect if Mika is not playing center this upcoming season. But as for Laba, former 4th-round center, drafted by the Rangers at number 111 overall in 2022, 6'2", 192 pounds. And it's interesting with Laba as well because he was taken in the 4th round, like we just said. This is the same year that Adam Sikora went in the 2nd round. It's also the same year that Bryce McConnell-Barker went in the 3rd round. But I think Laba, even though he went after both of those players, he seems to have more buzz and more Ranger fans excited than either of the 2 guys that I just mentioned. So that's kind of interesting in its own right. We don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves here when it comes to Laba. I mean, he is barely just making an impact in the AHL. He only played 11 games with the Wolf Pack last season. He did have 3 goals and 2 assists. And he also played his 3rd and final season at Colorado College this past year. 100 total games with Colorado College in the regular season, 41 goals, 44 assists, a total of 85 points. Now, it's not as easy to produce at that clip, the higher level of hockey that you're playing at. But even with that being the case, this is obviously somebody that has, a scoring touch and somebody that I think at some point could be an option for the Rangers this upcoming season. He's got good size, good physicality. Clearly, he's got the scoring touch as well. And there's also that little bit of a void in the Ranger lineup as far as third-line center is concerned. Now, if Brodzinski or Parssinen, if they take the reins and they run with it this upcoming season, then more power to them. Or if they don't put Mika with JT Miller, then you've got a top 3 center situation in any order of JT Miller, Vincent Trocheck, and Mika Zibanejad. Then that would probably limit the chances that Laba has to debut. But even with that being the case, he's somebody that certainly I think everybody should keep an eye on this upcoming season. A little bit of a dark horse as far as Ranger prospects are concerned. So we got one more here. This is somebody that I think is kind of climbed the list of a lot of Ranger fans, myself included, somebody that's really turned some heads this past season, and that would be Dylan Robrick, another giant from the 6th round. First, we had Adam Edstrom getting called up. Then it was Matt Rempe. And at some point, maybe we also get Dylan Robrick. Robrick, when number 178 overall, when the Rangers drafted him, he can play center as well as left wing, so there's some versatility there as well. He just turned 21, so he is still very young. And again, it's the same thing we said for Laba. Any Rangers center that's a prospect right now, their chances of debuting this upcoming season increase if Mika moves to the right wing with JT Miller. So we'll see what happens there. But as for Robrick, 6'7", 205 pounds. For reference, he is the same height as Adam Edstrom, but he's about 35 pounds lighter. So I guess a little bit lankier than Edstrom. Even with that being the case, though, at some point, I got to see a Ranger fourth line left to right of Edstrom, Robrick, and Rempe. That would be quite the sight to behold. I mean, you're talking about three of the absolute tallest skyscrapers in the NHL, all playing on the same line, and all of whom bring at least some physicality to the table. And obviously with Rempe, that's very clearly his calling card. But that would just be very, very fun to see. I think fans would have a fun time seeing the three of them all playing together. As far as Robrick goes, though, if we don't count 2 years ago, him playing in one playoff game with the Hartford Wolf Pack, then that would mean that this past season was his first as a pro. He ends up with 20 goals, 14 assists for a total of 34 points in 72 games. He was also a +2 this past year for Hartford, which for all intents and purposes was his first year of pro hockey. Now, those are not sparkling numbers, but when you're talking about somebody that was a 6th-rounder and puts up those kinds of numbers, has a 20-goal season in his first year as a pro, that's fairly impressive. And I didn't have that on my bingo card. When we did similar episodes as this one last offseason, I mean, I might have mentioned Dylan Robrick every once in a while. Intriguing, tall, 6th-rounder. Probably mentioned Rempe and Edstrom back then as well, as far as this Ranger trend where they draft big guys, late in drafts. But I didn't really have any massive expectations for him. And he ends up with a 20-goal season with the Hartford Wolf Pack. He's also said to be an excellent skater and a very good passer as well. So that's obviously positive. And physical player, the Raiders really might have something here. This is somebody that I think sooner or later will make his NHL debut. Now, will it happen this upcoming season? That remains to be seen. It depends on a lot of things. How are other people performing? How healthy or not healthy are the Rangers? Do they need a spark at some kind? Do they need a little bit more physicality? That might be when you see the Rangers call up somebody like Dylan Robrick. But I would love to see him, even if it's just a cup of coffee treatment and he's only up for like 2 or 3 games, whatever it might be. I would love to see what the Rangers have with him. And I got to see him at one time or another centering a line that has both Rempe and Edstrom. I just think that would be a lot of fun. And we have that Rangers-Flyers 2-game rookie series coming up. That will be happening on September 12th and 13th. Hopefully we get a stream of that. Would definitely be curious to check it out. But he's one of the players that I'm going to be watching probably as closely as just about anybody in that 2-game set. So we'll see what happens there.